An in-depth investigation by international journalists has uncovered a shadowy and highly organized network through which Chinese companies continue supplying drone-related equipment to Russia, despite global sanctions and official denials. What emerges from this investigation is not just a story of loopholes, but a complex ecosystem of indirect trade, disguised transactions, and questionable financial practices that allow critical military goods to flow into Russia's defense industry. The findings raise serious concerns about the effectiveness of sanctions, the role of private businesses, and the willingness of financial institutions to turn a blind eye to potentially illicit trade. Today we will talk about China-Russia sanctions evasion exposed. So before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. At the center of this controversy is the widespread use of drones in the war in Ukraine. Among the most prominent is the Mavic drone, produced by the Chinese technology company DJI. Originally designed as a civilian camera drone, the Mavic has become a crucial tool on the battlefield for both Ukrainian and Russian forces. Its applications extend far beyond simple aerial photography. These drones are used for reconnaissance, surveillance, artillery targeting, and even as improvised weapons capable of dropping explosives. In modern warfare, such drones have become indispensable due to their affordability, ease of use, and adaptability. The investigation revealed that Chinese companies are knowingly supplying components and technologies that are essential for drone warfare. But this is happening despite China's official stance that it does not export weapons to either Russia or Ukraine. The key to this contradiction lies in the classification of many drone-related items as dual-use goods. These are products that can serve both civilian and military purposes, such as cameras, navigation systems, motors, and fiber optic cables. Because they are not explicitly labeled as weapons, their export often falls into a regulatory gray area. To uncover how this system operates, researchers from investigative journalism groups conducted a covert operation. Posing as Russian buyers representing military needs, they reached out to Chinese manufacturers and suppliers with requests for large quantities of drone-related products. The response was striking. Many companies showed no hesitation in providing detailed offers, while some worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. There was little attempt to conceal the intended use of the goods, suggesting that suppliers were either aware or willfully ignorant of their ultimate destination and purpose. One of the most revealing aspects of the investigation was the role of fiber optic cables in modern drone warfare. These cables are used in advanced kamikaze drones that are controlled via physical connections rather than radio signals, making them resistant to electronic jamming. Such drones began appearing on the Ukrainian battlefield in 2024 and quickly proved to be highly effective. Following a Ukrainian strike on a Russian fiber optic cable factory in Saransk in April 2025, Russia's demand for these cables surged dramatically. Imports reportedly increased tenfold, with China emerging as the primary supplier. Journalists successfully negotiated a major deal involving 500 reels of fiber optic cable, each 50 kilometers long. Priced at $27.8 per kilometer, the total cost reached nearly $700,000. The ease with which such a transaction was arranged highlights the scale and openness of this trade. In addition to cables, suppliers also offered other critical drone components, including flight control systems and electronic modules, often bundled into large contracts. What makes these transactions particularly concerning is the use of deceptive practices to evade sanctions. Many companies employ shell corporations or intermediaries to obscure the true nature of their business. For example, a company named Tianjin Textile Import and Export, which ostensibly deals in fabrics, was found to be heavily involved in exporting fiber optic cables. In official records, these goods were mislabeled as bicycles or bicycle parts, allowing them to pass through customs without raising suspicion. Between January and March 2025 alone, this company reportedly exported over $10 million worth of such disguised products to Russia. The use of shell companies is widespread in this network. In many cases, the company listed on an invoice is different from the one actually producing or shipping the goods. This layering of entities makes it extremely difficult for regulators to trace transactions and enforce sanctions. It also provides plausible deniability for those involved, as each party can claim limited knowledge of the overall supply chain. Financial transactions play a crucial role in sustaining the system. To avoid detection, Chinese suppliers often request payments through unconventional methods, including cryptocurrency. This allows transactions to bypass traditional banking systems that are subject to international oversight. However, conventional banks are still heavily involved. The investigation found that at least 6 different Chinese banks were listed on invoices provided by suppliers. These banks processed payments in Chinese yuan, often originating from Russian sources. Perhaps most notably, the Russian state-owned VTB Bank has emerged as a key financial conduit. Despite being under heavy Western sanctions, VTB maintains a presence in China and facilitates trade between the two countries. It has become a central channel for transactions conducted in rubles and yuan, effectively bypassing the US dollar and reducing exposure to Western financial systems. This arrangement has allowed trade between Russia and China to continue growing. Even as sanctions intensify, the involvement of Chinese banks has raised eyebrows among analysts and policymakers. Traditionally, these institutions have been cautious about engaging in activities that could attract sanctions. However, the investigation suggests that some banks are either overlooking suspicious transactions or actively participating in them. Researchers describe this behavior as surprising, given the potential risks involved. They argue that financial institutions may be playing a more significant role in enabling this trade than previously understood. Another troubling finding is the apparent indifference among some business actors. The report characterizes this as a mix of greed and moral recklessness, with companies prioritizing profit over ethical considerations. The willingness to supply goods that could directly contribute to warfare raises serious questions about corporate responsibility and the limits of regulatory enforcement. While governments may set policies, it is ultimately businesses that execute transactions, and their actions can have far-reaching consequences. The scale of drone warfare further underscores the importance of these supply chains. According to Ukrainian military data, Russia launched more than 5,000 attack drones in a single month, including over 3,200 identified as Shahid or Giran models. These drones have been used extensively to target infrastructure, military positions, and urban areas. But the ability to sustain such a high volume of attacks depends heavily on a steady supply of components, many of which originate from abroad. The situation also highlights the evolving nature of modern warfare. Unlike traditional weapons systems, drones rely on a wide range of commercially available technologies. This makes it much harder to regulate their production and distribution. Items like cameras, cables, and processors are produced in large quantities for civilian use, creating opportunities for diversion into military applications. As a result, enforcing sanctions becomes a complex and ongoing challenge. In response to these findings, the authors of the investigation have called for stricter measures, including sanctions targeting Chinese banks and companies involved in the trade. But they argue that without addressing the financial networks that facilitate these transactions, efforts to curb the flow of military goods will remain ineffective. However, such measures could have significant geopolitical implications, potentially escalating tensions between major powers and disrupting global trade. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up, leave a comment, and click the button to subscribe.